Marjorie-Taylor Greene was once MAGA's most loyal foot soldier. She stood by President Trump even during his political exile after 2020. Now she says that she's done with the Republican Party altogether. And she's not the only prominent figure whose political footing has shifted in the seismic fallout from the Iran war. Tucker Carlson said he can no longer vote Republican, although he still supports J.D. Vance. Nick Fuentes urged his followers to vote Democrat in the midterms. Lifelong Democrat Alan Dershowitz has gone in the opposite direction, he says, to support Israel. Senator John Madiman is rumoured to be on the same path. And this weekend, Bill Maher told the vice president that he would consider voting Republican for the first time because of the Israel-hating communist wing of the Democratic Party. With so many influential people declaring themselves politically homeless, there is excitable talk of a new populist party which does what MAGA said it would do. But could it really work on a national scale? And why is everyone so sick of the movements they helped to build? Well, Marjorie-Taylor Greene joins me now. Welcome back to Uncensored, Marjorie.
Hi, Piers. Thanks for having me.
What the hell is going on? We've got MAGA people saying we're not going to vote Republican. We've got people on the left migrating to the Republicans. It feels to me like the whole American political system and people's voting intentions has just been tossed up in the air. And it feels, honestly, quite chaotic.
What happens when one of MAGA's most recognizable voices says she's done with the Republican Party? That's exactly the conversation unfolding here as Marjorie-Taylor Greene makes some of her strongest criticisms yet of the movement she once helped champion. From campaign promises to foreign policy and growing frustration with Washington, this interview touches on some of the biggest debates shaping American politics today. If you're enjoying this type of political commentary, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. As the discussion unfolds, Greene explains why she believes Republican voters have been let down, reflects on her own political evolution, and even raises the possibility of an entirely new political movement. Will this mark a turning point for the MAGA movement, or is it simply another chapter in an already divided political landscape? Let's take a look.
Well, I'm sure it does feel that way, but for most regular Americans, they've begun to really see through Washington and the failures of both parties, Republican and the Democratic Party. For me, I was honestly never a Republican Party person. Most people don't realize that I had never even been to a GOP county meeting before I entered one and declared I was running for Congress. So I was always, when I served in Congress, I was always there more to hold my own party accountable to what they promise and say they will do out on the campaign trail versus how they actually govern when they're in power. For example, we are totally and completely fed up with funding foreign wars and regime change and having to basically our military to be used to benefit other countries. But there's other very important issues that are constantly ignored by the Republican Party. One of them is the cost of health insurance, which is outrageous. That's something I heard about from my constituents from every walk of life, whether they were in the lower income portion of my district or even in the higher income portion of my district. But there's also extremely important things, and that's fiscal responsibility. Both parties have failed over and over again. It's constantly blowing the budget, plunging the American people in debt to the point, Piers, the one thing that is really starting to upset me is coming up in 2032, Social Security is literally going to be insolvent and bankrupt. And it's just outrageous that Republicans constantly call themselves conservative, yet when they're in power and they're governing, they are some of the biggest spenders. Their policies promote big government, such as things like promoting AI, promoting control over your information, backing data centers that no one wants built next to their property. And then also they're some of the biggest supporters of the giant lobbyists like Big Pharma and the military industrial complex. So people like me and Tucker Carlson, the reason why we're saying, oh, no, we're done voting for you and supporting you. And I can say that big time because I actually came off the bench, went into Congress and tried really hard for 5 years and supported the Republican Party with millions of dollars. We're saying that we are sick and tired of you because you're liars. And so what we're trying to do is really get the message out loud and clear that the American people have been betrayed. The Republican voters have been screwed over, and anyone that really cares about America First policies are being cast to the side while it's business as usual in Washington.
Has Donald Trump, in your eyes, has he betrayed the MAGA movement? I mean, by going into such a massive war with Iran, by going against everything he campaigned on, not to do that kind of thing, by not being as transparent with the administration with, say, the Epstein files as they vowed to be before the election, by not taking care of cost of living. You could argue the tariff wars and then the war in Iran, all these things have all contributed to a failure to deal or bring down most prices in America for ordinary people. Does that constitute, in your eyes, a betrayal of the campaign pledges that Donald Trump made?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I was out on the campaign trail as an elected member of Congress, a Republican. I think I spoke at more Trump rallies literally than anyone else. And so I was there. I heard the campaign promises. I was involved and I was promising them as well. A big one of them, Piers, was every single Republican campaigned against Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Democrats, attacking them over cost of living, inflation, and affordability. That was one of the big ones. And to me, that's a big pillar of Make America Great Again. My goodness, if Americans can't afford their costs of living and can't afford gas at the pump, can't afford their grocery bills, then that's an utter failure of Make America Great Again. But yeah, the two big ones is the Iran war. We said no more foreign wars over and over again. At rally stage after rally stage, President Trump entered office as the peace president, launched the Board of Peace, made himself the president of the Board of Peace with literally no term limits. And then it was weeks later, launched into this war with Iran. So that is outrageous. That is a broken campaign promise. I don't care how many times he says Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, and I'm not promoting that either. However, what we have seen this turn into is a war who controls the strait and working on controlling the oil prices. It's rigging the market practically every single week in and out while the bombing campaigns happen on the weekends. But you also touched on a big one, Piers, and it is the Epstein files. He was the biggest defender of the Epstein files, and he worked the hardest and put his thumb on everyone, the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, and everyone to stop the release of the Epstein files, to the point where Thomas Massey, myself, Nancy Mace, and Lauren Boebert had to sign a discharge petition with all of the Democrats to get it released. And, I can't leave out the Democrats. They never cared about the Epstein files until we made it an issue and they found out, oh, this is a political problem for Donald Trump. So they don't deserve credit for being a champion of that issue. However, they deserve credit because they actually worked to get the files released. But Donald Trump is still fighting releasing the files. The files are not released. And that to me is shocking. We're talking about elite rapists and pedophiles, and there's still no accountability and no justice for the victims.
Trump has taken your criticisms well, as you would have expected. He's branded you a traitor, Tucker Carlson a low IQ person. I mean, I don't understand quite why you're a traitor when really what you've been calling for is for the campaign promises to be met by reality, not the complete opposite. And in Tucker's case, the idea he's low IQ, I mean, he's one of the smartest people I know. I don't agree with everything he says, but I certainly would defend his IQ. But that's, that's part of the Trump playbook, is to go after people personally. What impact has that had on you? You were very close with him, and then it was the opposite, obviously. I mean, how do you feel about all that?
Actually, you know what? In my everyday life, him calling me a traitor has had zero effect because everyone knows the definition of a traitor. A traitor is someone that is working on behalf of a foreign country. And I would argue that's what Donald Trump has been doing with this war in Iran. He's been working on behalf of Israel, not America. This war has not helped Americans one single bit. As a matter of fact, it's cost Americans tens of billions of dollars, not only to their pocketbook, what they've had to pay at the gas pump and inflation, but also what it's costing them in the budget. Because here goes Congress having to spend hundreds of billions more because of his bombing campaign. So traitors work for foreign countries and not for the United States of America. Actually, Piers, I would say standing up to Donald Trump has been one of the best things I could do, because I stood on the principle of defending victims of rape and pedophilia. And that's not something I will ever apologize for. And I didn't go to Washington to be there forever. I never wanted to be Nancy Pelosi or Maxine Waters or Mitch McConnell that was there, being treated like I live in some kind of nursing home. I have a real life, and I'm very grateful for that. And so, I don't see it as a negative one single bit. And, I do want to add this. His style of name calling and basically like threatening to wipe out an entire civilization of people in Iran, whether you're for Iran or against Iran, every single person should think that's immoral, wanting to kill man, woman, and child in a country. And name calling people and all of that, that is exactly the worst example anyone could set from the president of the United States. And I would say it's been, over 10 years now that Donald Trump has been on the prominent scene of politics. And he has led the way of toxic politics. I followed in his lead, Piers, and I'm sorry I ever did that.
Well, it's interesting to me because on that, I mean, I remember you being pretty intemperate with some of your rhetoric, but you are clearly a different person now. Well, when I interview you now, you're not like that. You don't use inflammatory rhetoric. You are quite circumspect in the way that you express yourself. You come across in a completely different way to when you were full square behind Trump.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's all of us learn lessons in life. I'm not a perfect person, but I'm willing to admit here's something I regret. And I was very much, I was very ingrained in MAGA. And part of Donald Trump's MAGA is, and it's from his leadership, is attacking his enemies and his opponents with vicious name calling, smears, and lies. Piers, that is also the entire level of politics that America is in now. You see campaign ads coming from both sides of the aisle that are horrific, name calling and smears and insinuations of all types of allegations. And it's not helping America. Think about this. One of the things that we say is united we stand, divided we fall. And the two-party system in America today has us extremely divided. But I would really blame Donald Trump for a lot of that division. And it's because of his bully tactics, his name calling, his lies he says about people, toxic politics, and it creates hate and division among all Americans. And guess what? It's not helping us. It's not solving any problems. It's not going to stop Social Security from going bankrupt. It's not going to get us out of the $40 trillion in debt, which has taken our dollar and plunged it into not having a very good value anymore at all. And it's not going to stop sending our military to foreign wars. It's not going to help my kids' generation, the 20-year-olds that are looking to the future and literally hate politics and everyone involved in it. And so, I'm easily able to say, I'm sorry I ever got involved in that. I learned a great lesson. I want nothing to do with it. I seriously, the only people I listen to now are people that are focused on actually solving problems.
Is there a chance that Tucker Carlson runs to be the next Republican nominee, do you think? Everyone's talking about J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio, who are part of the administration. But is there a chance that Tucker, and maybe with support of people like yourself, could you see him making a run? Is there a new splinter version of the Republicans that could take over the party?
I haven't had that direct conversation with Tucker. I know a lot of people are speculating that, and I can tell you right now, Tucker Carlson would be a great threat to both parties because there's many Americans that are very independent that would support him, but there's also Republican voters and Democrat voters that would support him. So I would say he's a very credible threat. There is a group of us that have literally fought the system. And I think there's a group of us that if we decide to align, we could launch a true America-focused party that doesn't fall into the traps of Democrats and Republicans, but could align some serious players from the right and the left and move forward. But Piers, I'm also very realistic because I was in the system. I've served in Congress. I've run campaigns. I know what it takes. It's difficult to launch a third party. So the reality is this isn't something that gets off the ground in just a couple of campaign cycles. This is a movement that has to be developed and would take time to develop. I'm not sure where that is right now, but I am in talks with people, and there are serious conversations happening, looking at what are the mechanics of that and the reality of it. But up Piers, I'll also say this is it's going to take the American people to get involved. And the American people are the ones that really push campaigns. And so if the American people truly want to give a strong challenge to the failed two-party system of America, then they're going to have to step up because it's not going to be a couple of players like Tucker and I and a few others that can roll up our sleeves and get this done. It's going to take a serious effort from everyone.
I mean, you're talking there about a third party, and that has all the difficulties that you've outlined. Is there another scenario where if, for example, the Republicans take a real beating in the midterm elections and lose both the House and Senate, that there becomes a growing repudiation of Trumpism, if you like, and everyone associated with his administration, and the Republican Party itself evolves and heads to where you would think it ought to have been to start with and was before it got led astray, and that you, Tucker, Megyn Kelly, many others, in that circumstance could be potentially a driving force for a different type of Republican Party. In other words, you operate within the Republican Party, you just change it.
We already did that. We thought we did that in 2024.
But that's what I mean.
And that's why this is why we're furious. I mean, we've been betrayed, 100% betrayed. They have turned, it's like they took Donald Trump, it's like the Scooby-Doo mask. They pulled his mask off, and what was underneath was a nasty combination of Lindsey Graham and Mark Levin, the wing of the neocon Republican establishment party that the voters in 2024 hated, loathed, rose up against, and voted to end that version of the Republican Party. And here we are, not even 2 years in, and Donald Trump is leading it. Those are the people, those are the phone calls he takes. Those are the donors that he has dinner with. I mean, I can't tell you how many people wanted to vomit when they saw Bill Gates in there having dinner with him in the White House. And like Mark Zuckerberg, who spent unknown amounts of money against him in the 2020 campaign on Facebook. And I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But the betrayal has gotten even deeper with big tech and big pharma, and it just continues on. So the players are all the same in the Republican Party. It's also, you have to add in the political consultants that run the campaigns and get paid cycle after cycle. See, none of that will change. So if we go scorched earth and tell the Republican Party, get in line and do what you claim you are going to do, actually do it, or we're going to withhold our votes and you're going to get destroyed in the elections. And then they come back on their hands and knees pleading again, oh, we promised to change and we promise to follow through on that. I have a hard time believing it right now. I'm like, you prove it right now. You're the ones that have full control. Republicans have the White House, the House, and the Senate. And I don't care about how many lies and bullshit they say about, oh, our Senate rules and this and that and the other. They're the party in control, and they honestly can do whatever they want to do. However, Piers, the honest truth is they're a bunch of liars and they refuse to do it. If they want to end foreign wars, pack up the military and come back home. If you want to stop sending all this money overseas, bring your military home and stop making the American people pay for it. If you want to reduce spending, how they all call themselves conservatives, yet they blow budgets worse than Democrats ever do. Well, stop spending so much money and prove it to people. It's like, if you want to lower inflation, put policies in place that lower inflation. They have the ability to do that right now and prove it to people like me and Tucker Carlson and anyone else and Republican voters that are furious right now. They have the ability to do it. But don't go out and give your tough talks on Fox News with a bunch of propaganda BS and throw the red meat garbage, out on the television screen like, oh, we're going to deport people, while you got Mark Mullins on there saying, oh, no, we're going to let the Haitians and everybody else, do the paperwork to become permanent citizens, even though Americans, you've been paying for these people all these years. This is what they're doing. They're going into campaign mode with their rhetoric. But what I'm saying is, you're a bunch of liars. Prove it with your actions. And if they prove it with their actions, then maybe they can get another chance.
Fascinating stuff. Marjorie-Taylor Greene, thank you very much indeed for joining me.
Thank you, Piers.
So, there's one major takeaway from this discussion that I think deserves attention. This interview wasn't just about one politician criticizing another, it was about what happens when people who helped build a political movement begin questioning whether that movement is still delivering on the promises that brought millions of voters together in the first place. Throughout this conversation, Marjorie-Taylor Greene argues that many supporters feel frustrated because they expected a different direction on issues like government spending, foreign policy, and transparency. Whether you agree with her assessment or not, it's clear that these disagreements are no longer coming only from political opponents. They're also coming from voices that were once among the movement's strongest supporters. Another interesting point is how much the discussion focused on trust. Elections are often won on promises, but governing is judged by results. When expectations and outcomes don't line up, it's not unusual to see public debate become more intense, even within the same political coalition. That's part of what makes conversations like this significant. The interview also raises a broader question about the future of American politics. Is this simply a temporary disagreement inside one party, or could it signal a larger political realignment? History has shown that major political movements evolve over time, and moments of internal disagreement can sometimes reshape the direction of a party for years to come. Whether that ultimately happens here remains to be seen. At the same time, it's worth remembering that political interviews often reflect strongly held opinions from the people involved. Viewers may reach very different conclusions after hearing the same arguments, and that's exactly why discussions like this continue to generate so much attention. As always, the real test won't be the headlines or the reactions online. It will be what voters decide when they head to the ballot box, and whether these internal divisions continue to grow or eventually fade. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest political commentary. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.